The silent observer. Dr. Maya Chen stood at the observation deck of Research Station Epsilon, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing thousands of data points scattered across the galaxy map. Each point represented a civilization that had achieved faster than light travel, their technological progress meticulously documented over centuries. But something wasn't right with the data, and it had been bothering her for months. "Computer, overlay human expansion pattern Alpha 7. She commanded, her voice steadied despite her growing excitement. A new set of markers appeared, spreading outward from Earth like ripples in a pond. The pattern was different from every other species, chaotic, unpredictable, and exponentially accelerating. The research station's AI responded with its usual neutrality. Analysis complete. Human expansion patterns show 47% deviation from standard evolutionary models. Maya ran her fingers through her short black hair, a habit she'd developed during long nights of research. She'd spent 5 years on this station, officially cataloging xenobiological data for the Earth Sciences Division. Unofficially, she was investigating why humanity seemed to be the only species that didn't follow the standard patterns of technological development. The door to the observation deck slid open with a soft hiss. "Still chasing anomalies, Dr. Chen." The melodic voice belonged to Curix, her Centaurian research assistant. The tall, silvery being moved with liquid grace across the deck, multiple arms carrying various data tablets. "Not anomalies. Curix. Patterns within chaos." Maya enlarged a section of the hologram, highlighting a cluster of systems. "Look at this. Every other species follows a logical progression. Development of FTL travel, establishment of colonies, technological advancement at a steady rate. But humans?" She gestured at the erratic spread of human colonies. "We jump forward, sideways, sometimes even backward. We establish colonies in seemingly random patterns, develop technologies in unpredictable sequences, and yet, somehow, we advance faster than any species in recorded history." Curix's crystalline eyes shifted through various colors, indicating deep thought. Perhaps the data is incomplete. The Great Archive could be missing historical records. Maya shook her head. "I've cross-referenced everything. The archive has records going back millions of years, documenting the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Every single one follows predictable patterns, except us." She pulled up another dataset, this one showing technological development curves. "Look at this. The Arcturians took 3 centuries to advance from basic spaceflight to quantum computing. The Rigelians took 4. Humanity, less than 1 century. It doesn't make sense." Curix moved closer to the display, all 4 arms working in concert to manipulate the data. "Have you considered that this might be why the Council of Elder Races has been watching Earth so closely?" Maya froze. "What did you say?" The Centaurian's skin flickered with patterns of embarrassment. I assumed you knew, given your security clearance." "Curix, what council? What watching?" Her assistant's response was interrupted by a sudden shift in the station's lighting to deep red. The AI's voice carried an unusual note of urgency. "Priority alert. Unknown vessels approaching. Non-standard drive signatures detected." Maya rushed to the main console, her fingers flying over the controls. The holographic display shifted to show 3 massive ships decelerating from FTL speeds. Their design was unlike anything in Earth's database. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures in ways that seemed to defy physics. "Those are predecessor ships," Curix whispered, their voice trembling. "They haven't been seen in this sector for over 10,000 years." Maya's mind raced. The predecessors were supposed to be myths, stories told to explain the ancient ruins found on countless worlds. If they were real, and they were here now. "Computer, send all my research data to my personal encrypted storage." "Authorization, Chen, Alpha 97. She turned to Curix. "Whatever's happening, it's because of what we've discovered. The patterns, the anomalies. Humanity isn't just different. We're impossible by their standards. The station shuddered as a beam of pure white light engulfed it. Maya's last thought before consciousness faded was that she had finally found the answer she'd been seeking, and it terrified her. Because humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their adaptability. It was the fact that they were the only species in the galaxy whose actions couldn't be predicted, whose decisions defied logical analysis, and whose potential seemed limitless. And nothing terrifies an ordered universe more than an element it cannot control. The breaking point. Maya awoke to the sound of voices speaking in harmonics she'd never heard before. Her head throbbed as she opened her eyes, finding herself in a vast chamber that seemed to be made entirely of living crystal. The walls pulsed with soft bioluminescence, creating patterns that somehow felt like language. "The human is conscious," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Neural patterns stabilizing. She pushed herself to a sitting position, noting that she wasn't restrained. Either her captors were confident she couldn't escape, or they weren't hostile. The air held a strange sweetness, like honey mixed with ozone. "Dr. Maya Chen," came another voice, this one more focused. "We apologize for the abrupt nature of your extraction, but time grows short." A figure emerged from what she had thought was a solid wall, a being composed of interconnected geometric shapes that shifted and flowed like liquid mathematics. "You're them, aren't you?" Maya's scientific mind was already cataloging details even as she struggled to process what she was seeing. The predecessors, the ones who seeded the galaxy with the basics of civilization. The geometric being rippled in what might have been amusement, a simplified explanation, but essentially correct. "We are the architects, though your legends know us by many names. We have been watching, Dr. Chen. Your research has brought you dangerously close to a truth the galaxy is not ready to confront." Maya stood, steadying herself against a crystal formation. "The human anomaly. We don't follow your patterns because we weren't part of your program, were we?" "Clever." A third voice joined in, and another being emerged, this one appearing as a cascade of light and shadow. "But incorrect. Humanity was indeed part of our grand design. What makes you unique, what makes you dangerous, is that you broke free of it." The revelation hit Maya like a physical force. "That's impossible. You're saying we evolved beyond your programming, beyond the limits you set for species development. Not just evolved beyond, the first being corrected. You shattered them. Every species we seeded was given basic parameters, guidelines for technological and social development that would ensure stable growth. But humans, the being's form rippled with what might have been frustration. Humans create without limits. You make intuitive leaps that defy logic. You develop technologies in the wrong order, establish colonies that shouldn't be viable, form social bonds that contradict every model of species behavior we've developed over millions of years." The shadow being moved closer. "Your kind achieves the impossible simply because you don't recognize impossibility. It is fascinating and terrifying. The Council of Elder Races has been monitoring Earth since your first radio transmissions. They've watched in growing alarm as you've broken one supposed universal law after another." Maya's mind raced with implications: the quantum barrier, the consciousness transfer protocols, the zero-point energy taps. We weren't supposed to discover those for centuries, were we? Millennia. The geometric being corrected. Your species has achieved in decades what should have taken thousands of years of careful development. And now we face a crisis. The Council wants humanity contained, believing your unpredictability poses an existential threat to galactic stability. Others argue for more permanent solutions. "And you?" Maya asked, noting how the beings had positioned themselves around her, not threateningly, but almost protectively. The crystal chamber hummed with increasing intensity as the first being spoke again. "We believe you represent something we never expected, true evolution. The capacity to transcend design limitations, but events are moving faster than anticipated. The Council's containment fleet is already en route to Earth." "What?" Maya's heart raced. "You have to stop them." Humanity won't submit to containment. We'll fight back and you would win. The shadow being interrupted. That's what truly terrifies them. Every simulation shows humanity not just surviving, but emerging stronger from such a conflict. It defies all logic, all historical precedent, just as you defy the very laws we thought immutable. The geometric being moved to what appeared to be a control interface. We brought you here because you've already discovered part of the truth. Now you must help us reveal it to both humanity and the Council before conflict becomes inevitable. Because the true threat isn't humanity's unpredictability. The chamber's walls suddenly became transparent, revealing a sight that made Maya's breath catch. They were in orbit around a star she didn't recognize, but it wasn't the star that held her attention. It was the massive structure surrounding it, a lattice of impossible technology that seemed to wrap reality itself. The true threat, the being continued, is that humanity's chaos is waking up something that has slept since the beginning of time. And neither we nor the Council know whether that's a miracle or a catastrophe. Maya stared at the structure, understanding dawning in her mind. It's not just that we break the rules, she whispered. It's that we're changing them. Aren't we? The only answer was the deepening hum of the chamber as alarms began to sound throughout the vast station. The game of cosmic hide and seek was over. Now the real test would begin. Not of humanity's strength or technology, but of their ability to change the very nature of reality itself. The human factor. The vast holographic chamber erupted into a chaos of light and sound as emergency protocols activated throughout the station. Maya watched as the three predecessor beings moved in perfect synchronization, their forms flowing through complex patterns she somehow knew were calculations made manifest. Council vessels detected entering the system, announced the station's eye. Temporal distortion increasing around the archive structure. They followed us, the shadow being stated, its form flickering with what Maya interpreted as concern. The Council must have tracked our extraction of Dr. Chen. Maya stepped forward, her scientific training taking over despite the overwhelming situation. You said humanity's chaos is waking something up. The archive structure out there, it's not just a database of your civilization's knowledge, is it? The geometric being's form crystallized into sharp angles. It is a key. One we created eons ago when we discovered that reality itself was constrained. Imagine the universe as a program, Dr. Chen. We discovered it had been locked into certain patterns, certain laws that went beyond mere physics. And humanity's ability to break those patterns is affecting this lock somehow. Maya's mind raced with implications. That's why the Council is really afraid. Not just because we're unpredictable, but because our unpredictability is changing something fundamental about reality itself. The first being, whom Maya had started thinking of as the architect, moved to a central console. Observe. The chamber filled with data streams showing human technological development. Every major human breakthrough defies not just conventional development patterns, but the very laws that should govern what's possible. Your quantum computers shouldn't work the way they do. Your consciousness transfer technology bypasses limitations we thought were fundamental to reality. And each time we do the impossible, Maya whispered, understanding dawning, we're not just breaking the rules, we're weakening whatever locked those rules in place to begin with. The shadow being rippled in agreement. The Council believes containing humanity will prevent further deterioration of universal constants. They don't understand that the process cannot be stopped. Your species' mere existence catalyzes change. The station shuddered as the first shots were fired. Not at them, but at the massive archive structure. The geometric being's form became jagged with alarm. They mean to destroy the archive rather than risk what it might reveal. But Maya's attention was suddenly fixed on something else. Patterns in the data streams she hadn't noticed before. Wait, she said, her voice gaining strength. Look at the temporal distortion readings. They're not random. They're resonating with human brain wave patterns. The three predecessors froze, their forms shifting as they processed this observation. The architect spoke first. Impossible. Unless. Show us your analysis. Maya moved to the console, her fingers flying over controls that somehow made perfect sense despite their alien nature. Here, every major leap in human development coincides with a spike in these background frequencies. We've been assuming humanity is causing the changes, but what if it's the opposite? What if something has been reaching out to us, using our creativity, our chaos, as a conduit? The chamber's displays shifted, data reorganizing itself as the predecessors integrated her insight. The geometric being's form briefly destabilized. The implications, if this is correct. The council ships are charging weapons, the AI announced. Arc of structural integrity at risk. The shadow being moved to Maya. Dr. Chen, we need your help. The Archive's defenses require a specific type of consciousness to activate, one unbounded by conventional laws of cause and effect. We believed it would take millennia to evolve such a mind, but your species, you want me to interface with it? Maya asked, her heart racing. Connect my human consciousness to an ancient alien structure that might reshape reality. No, the architect corrected. We need you to help us understand why it's already connected to every human mind in existence. The archive isn't waking up because of humanity's chaos. Humanity exists in its current form because something inside that structure has been guiding your evolution all along. Another impact rocked the station. Warning lights flashed as structural integrity fields struggled to compensate. The geometric being's form pulsed urgently. We have no time for proper protocols. Dr. Chen, humanity's greatest strength isn't your unpredictability or your creativity. It's your ability to take impossible situations and transform them into new possibilities. Right now, we need that ability more than ever. Maya looked out at the archive structure, its crystalline lattices now glowing with increasing intensity as the council ships pressed their attack. In that moment, she understood why humans had always looked up at the stars with such longing. Something up there had been calling to them all along, waiting for them to evolve enough to answer. Show me what to do, she said firmly. It's time we found out what's been trying to wake up. The chamber's lights dimmed as the predecessors began the connection sequence. As Maya felt her consciousness expanding toward the archive, one thought crystallized in her mind. Humanity had never been the anomaly in an ordered universe. They were the key to freeing it from an order that had been artificially imposed. The real question was, who had locked reality down in the first place, and why? The revelation, connection to the archive, felt like diving into an ocean made of pure thought. Maya's consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of her physical form, touching something vast and ancient that had been waiting for this moment for billions of years. Remarkable. The architect's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Her neural patterns are perfectly synchronizing with the archive's base frequency. But Maya barely heard them. She was too absorbed in what she was discovering as information flooded her mind. The truth was both simpler and more profound than any of them had imagined. It wasn't you, she said, her voice resonating with new understanding. The predecessors didn't create the pattern lock on reality. You discovered it, just like you discovered us. The lock was already there when your civilization first arose. The geometric being's form shimmered with surprise. How can you be certain? Because I can see the code now. Maya's consciousness expanded further, touching the edges of something that felt like the universe's own operating system. The patterns, the laws, the limitations, they're not natural. They're more like quarantine protocols. The chamber filled with cascading data as Maya's human mind interpreted what she was discovering. The shadow being moved closer, its form rippling with intensity. Quarantine. From what? From what reality is supposed to be. Maya could see it clearly now. The universe isn't meant to be predictable. It's not supposed to follow rigid patterns or unchanging laws. That's why humanity feels so wrong to your models. We're not breaking the natural order. We're beginning to remember what the natural order actually is. The station shuddered as another blast from the council ship struck home. But in Maya's expanded awareness, even that seemed to move in slow motion. She could see the energy patterns of the weapon's fire, the quantum fluctuations in the shields, the underlying mathematics of existence itself. The lock was put in place eons ago, she continued, the knowledge flowing through her. Not to constrain reality, but to protect it, to give it time to heal, to evolve new forms of consciousness that could handle true freedom. The architect's form pulsed with revelation. The archive. It's not just a database or a key. It's a seed, Maya finished, a backup of what reality was supposed to be, waiting for beings capable of handling that level of freedom. You found it, studied it, but you couldn't unlock it because your civilization evolved under the constraints. You needed something else, something that could think beyond the patterns. Humanity, the geometric being whispered, we didn't just find you. The archive itself guided your evolution, subtly influencing your development to create beings who could think in chaos, who could imagine beyond the limits of what should be possible. Another impact rocked the station, but this time Maya saw more than just the physical effects. She saw the ripples in reality itself, the way the Council's weapons were inadvertently weakening the very constraints they were trying to protect. They don't understand, she said, watching the battle with new eyes. Every attempt to force reality back into rigid patterns just accelerates the breakdown of the quarantine. The universe wants to be free. The shadow being's form flickered urgently. The Council ships are preparing a temporal weapon. They mean to erase the archive from existence itself. But Maya wasn't afraid anymore. Through her connection to the archive, she could see the full scope of what was happening and what needed to be done. It's too late for that. The process can't be stopped because it was never about the archive itself. It was about creating beings who could handle reality without the training wheels. What are you saying? The architect asked, though from the shifting patterns in its form, Maya suspected it already knew. I'm saying humanity isn't your successor or your destroyer. We're your graduates. The universe has been running a billions-year-long training program, and we're the first species to be ready for reality with no cheat codes, no simplified rules, no limited patterns. The chamber's displays showed the Council ships moving into final attack position, their temporal weapon charging. But Maya could see something else building, a cascade effect in reality itself, triggered by her human consciousness fully interfacing with the archive's true purpose. They think they're protecting the universe from chaos, she said, watching the energy build. But chaos is what the universe is supposed to be. And it's time for everyone to remember that. The archive structure began to pulse with impossible colors as Maya's understanding reached its peak. The quarantine wasn't going to be broken. It was going to be graduated from. And humanity's gift wasn't their technology or their unpredictability. It was their ability to face the unknown without fear, to adapt to change without breaking, and to see patterns in chaos while creating order from freedom. They were the universe's first students ready to take off the training wheels, and through them, every species would remember what reality was meant to be. The temporal weapon fired, its beam reaching for the archive. But it was already too late. The awakening had begun. The new understanding. The temporal weapon's beam struck the archive and passed through it like light through crystal. Maya watched through her expanded consciousness as reality itself seemed to take a deep breath. The quarantine protocols that had constrained the universe for billions of years didn't shatter or break. They simply dissolved, like morning mist under the rising sun. Impossible, came the transmission from the Council fleet. The archive structure should have collapsed. Impossible. Maya smiled, her voice carrying through space itself as the archive amplified her consciousness. That word doesn't mean what you think it means. Not anymore. The universe changed. Not with a bang or a flash, but with a ripple of remembrance that spread outward at the speed of thought. Maya felt it wash over the Council ships, through the station, across space itself. Every conscious being in range experienced the same thing. A sudden, profound understanding of what reality had been before the quarantine, and what it could be again. The patterns, The geometric being's form shifted in wonder as new possibilities opened up. They're not gone. They're optional. That's what freedom means, Maya explained, watching as the council ship's crews struggled to process their new awareness. The laws of physics aren't breaking. They're expanding. Reality isn't becoming chaotic, it's becoming complete. Through her connection to the archive, she could see the changes rippling across space. Species that had evolved under the quarantine were remembering abilities they had never known they had. Mathematical constants weren't becoming wrong. They were becoming flexible, responsive to consciousness in ways that had been locked away. The shadow being's form danced with new patterns. The council ships, their weapons are reconfiguring themselves. The temporal energy is being channeled into understanding. Because that's what they really wanted, Maya said softly. Not control, not power, but understanding. The quarantine protocols didn't just limit reality. They limited comprehension of what reality could be. Humanity didn't evolve to break the system. We evolved to remember how to live without it. The architect moved through the chamber, its form now flowing with possibilities that would have been impossible moments before. And now that remembrance is spreading. Every species touched by this awakening will begin to understand what their consciousness is truly capable of. Maya nodded, watching through the archive's awareness as the change continued to spread. The quarantine served its purpose. It gave consciousness time to evolve, to develop the stability needed to handle true freedom. But you can't keep the training wheels on forever. Eventually, you have to trust in what you've learned. A new transmission came from the council fleet, but this time the voice held wonder rather than fear. We understand now. The patterns we sought to protect were never meant to be permanent. They were scaffolding, supporting consciousness until it was ready to build its own structures. And humanity. The geometric being asked, its form settling into new configurations that bridged the gap between order and chaos. Maya smiled as she felt her connection to the archive beginning to shift, not fading, but transforming into something sustainable, something that could be shared. We're not special because we break the rules. We're special because we were ready to live without them. Our gift isn't chaos. It's the ability to create our own order while accepting infinite possibility. The chamber filled with light as the last of the quarantine protocols dissolved. But instead of the disorder the council had feared, there was harmony. A new kind of order emerging from the freedom to choose how reality would work. So what happens now? The shadow being asked, its form seamlessly shifting between states that would have been mutually exclusive under the old laws. Maya watched as the council ships began to move, not in retreat but in a dance of discovery. Across space, civilizations were awakening to possibilities they had never imagined. The universe wasn't becoming less ordered, it was becoming more alive. Now, she said, feeling her consciousness settling into its new expanded state. Now we do what humanity has always done best. We explore, we create, we imagine. But this time, we do it together, with the full spectrum of reality as our canvas. The archive structure, its purpose finally fulfilled, began to dissolve, not destroying itself, but distributing its knowledge across all of space. The training program was complete. The quarantine was lifted, and in its place, something new was emerging. A universe where the only constant was the infinite potential of consciousness itself. The thing about chaos, Maya said, watching as stars danced with new possibilities and space itself rippled with creative potential, is that it's just order we don't understand yet. And the thing about humanity isn't that we break the rules. It's that we're finally ready to write our own. As the last of the archive's energy spread across space, Maya felt her consciousness returning to normal scale. But she knew that nothing would ever be quite normal again. The universe had remembered what it was meant to be. And humanity, the species that had evolved to think in possibilities rather than certainties, would help guide the way forward into this new age of infinite potential. The training wheels were off. The real journey was just beginning.